Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamim Niti Namini Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Ashtadre Shivarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Jai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Meenakshi Radha Mataji. Thank you for the Kirtan. So, devotees, I hope आप लोग सब quiz attend किया है. How many devotees have attended the quiz, Prabhu? I can't see. Okay. Okay. How many devotees? Ronnie Prabhu, I can't see on the phone screen.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So far, 5 participants have, 5 devotees have attempted.
Okay.
Total.
So we are 13 and 5 have attended. So I can tell you today quiz easy. So please attempt and get revision for what we read yesterday. So we'll just do quick Mangalacharan and request कि जिन्होंने अभी तक नहीं किया quiz, please attempt the quiz. ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जना शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्. नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने. नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद. हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय. जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. Hare Krishna. So today's verse. So we are reading ki what is real dharma and what should be the purpose of dharma. So these two shlokas 9 and 10 we are reading. So dharmasya hi apavargasya nartho artha upakalpate narthasya dharma ekantasya kamolabhya hi smrita. Okay, 1 second. Dharmasya, occupational engagement, he certainly, pavargasya, ultimate liberation, na, not, 1 second. Arthaya, for material gain, upkalpate is meant for, na, neither, arthasya, of material gain, dharma ekantasya, for one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service, kama, sense gratification, labhaya, attainment of, he, certainly, exactly. Smrita is described by the great sages. Translation and prepared by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should be performed for material. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to the sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. But we have already discussed that the pure devotional service to the Lord is automatically followed by perfect knowledge and detachment from material existence. ये हमने कल पढ़ा था. But there are others who consider that all kinds of different occupational engagements, including those of religion, are meant for material gain. The general tendency of any ordinary man in any part of the world is to gain some material profit in exchange for religious or any other occupational service. Sukh sampatti ghar aave, kashta mite tan ka. So that is our goal for most of the people. That is a goal for following religious practices. Even in the Vedic literatures, all sorts of religious performances are an allurement of material gain is offered, and most people are attracted by such allurements or blessings of religiosity. Why are such so-called men of religion allured by material gain? Because material gain can enable one to fulfill desires, which in turn can satisfy sense gratification. This cycle of occupational engagements includes so-called religiosity, followed by material gain, and material gain followed by fulfillment of desires. So धर्म कर रहे हैं क्योंकि अर्थ मिले, पैसा मिले, और अर्थ कर रहे हैं, अर्थ पैसा के क्या होगा? काम, धर्म, अर्थ, काम. So the goal is just this: कि do dharma for to get money in a proper manner, and once we get money, then we can fulfill our material desires. The cycle of occupational engagements include so-called religiosity followed by material gain, and material gain followed by fulfillment of desires. Sense gratification is a general way for all sorts of fully occupied men. But in the statement of Sud Goswami, as per the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam, this is nullified by the present shloka. So, devotees, please raise hand, those who want to read. Rani Prabhu, can you read? No, next one. Just continue, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. One should not engage himself in any sort of occupational service for material gain only, nor should material gain be utilized for sense gratification. How material gain should be utilized is described as follows. कामस्य नेन्द्रिया प्रीतिर्लभो जीवेत यावता जीवस्य तत्व जिज्ञासा नार्थो यश्चेह कर्मभिः. Kamasya, of desires, not. Indriya, senses. Prithi, satisfaction. Labh, gain. Jivet, self-preservation. Yavat, so much so. Jivasya, of the living being. Tattva, the absolute truth. Jigyasa, inquiries. Not. Artha, end. Ya cha iha, whatsoever else. Karma bhi, by occupational activities. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. The completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed towards the fulfillment of desires in sense gratification. In such civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. In politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion, or even in salvation, the very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant. In the political field, the leaders of men fight with one another to fulfill their personal sense gratification. The voters adore the so-called leaders only when they promise sense gratification. As soon as the voters are dissatisfied in their own sense gratification, they dethrone the leaders. The leaders must always disappoint the voters by not satisfying their senses. The same is applicable in all other fields. No one is serious about the problems of life. Even those who are on the path of salvation desire to become one with the absolute truth and desire to commit spiritual suicide for sense gratification. But the Bhagavatam says that one should not live for sense gratification. One should satisfy the senses only in so much as required for self-preservation and not for sense gratification. Because the body is made of senses, which also require a certain amount of satisfaction, there are regulative directions for satisfaction of such senses. But the senses are not meant for unrestricted enjoyment. For example, marriage or the combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but it is not meant for sense enjoyment. In the absence of voluntary restraint, there is propaganda for family planning. But foolish men do not know that family planning is automatically executed as soon as there is search after the absolute truth. Seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification, because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth in every sphere of life. Therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth. And that sort of engagement will make one happy because he will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. And what that absolute truth is explained as follows.
Hare Krishna. So we can see how the leaders also have to fulfill, in a democracy, they have to fulfill the desires of the citizens. If they don't fulfill the desire, then the citizens, they have the right to throw them out. That is why monarchy system is better than the democracy, because here the lowest denominator, the most uneducated person, is also has the same right as the educated person. So as a liberal, atmosphere these days, we may find it better, but it is not the right way. And because they have to be voted again, so unless they satisfy the senses of the citizens, so then there is no coming back. They have to do something for their betterment again and again, like this. And also second part which Prabhupada said is that anything which has restriction in the scriptures, it means it is prohibited. So whether it is marriage is a big part of our whole society, and Prabhupada is saying because it is given, so that marriage is given just for the satisfaction of our senses, little bit with restraint. Okay, can't have one or two or like this wives, then like this, and otherwise it is restricted. So we read today in the question answer Pravati Marg and Nivriti Marg. So there is a balance in a Varnashram system. So there is a balance given. But the balance we should see has to come to the Vanaprastha and the Sannyas also. But it is by the mercy of Prabhupada that within our society we have made a structure where devotees, as they get older and their house children are settled, then they can devote more and more time in the temple seva or preaching seva, like this. So automatically that Vanaprastha comes like this. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay. Ronnie Prabhu, can you keep on reading? Because
Yes.
from the mobile, I can't read.
Yes,
And just coordinate, Prabhuji. Just
Okay.
coordinate.
So
Next one. Next one, read the shloka and give it to the next one.
Okay, Prabhuji, I'll do that. Vadanti tattva tattvavidas tattvam yaj jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagwaniti shabdate. Sorry, Prabhu, would you like to read?
Yes, bro.
Okay.
Vadanti, they say, Tat, that, Tattva Vidaha, the learned souls, Tattvam, the absolute truth, Yat, which, Jnanam, knowledge, Advayam, non-dual, Brahma iti, known as Brahman, Paramatma iti, known as Paramatma, Bhagwan iti, known as Bhagwan. Sabdayate, it is so sounded. Translation, learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagwan. The absolute purport, the absolute truth is both subject and object. There is no qualitative difference there. Therefore, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan are qualitatively one and the same. The same subject is realized as impersonal Brahman by the students of Upanishad, as localized Paramatma by Hiranyagarbhas or the yogis, and as Bhagwan by the devotees. In other words, Bhagwan or the personality of Godhead is the last word of the absolute truth. Paramatma is the partial representation of personality of Godhead, and impersonal Brahman is the glowing effulgence of the personality of Godhead, as the sun rays are to the sun god. Less intelligent students of either of the above schools sometimes argue in favor of their own respective realization, but those who are perfect seers of the absolute truth know well that above three features of the one absolute truth are different perspective views seen from different angles of vision. As it is explained in the first shloka of the first chapter of Bhagavatam, the supreme truth is self-sufficient, cognizant, and free from illusion of relativity. In the relative word, the knower is different from the known. But in the absolute truth, both the knower and the known are the one and the same thing. In the relative word, the knower is living spirit or superior energy, whereas the known as the inert matter or inferior energy. Therefore, there is a duality of inferior and superior energy. Whereas in absolute realm, both the knower and the known are of same superior energy. There are three kinds of energies of the supreme energetic. There is no difference between the energy and the energetic, but there is a difference of quality of energies. The absolute realm and the living entities are of same superior energy, but the material world is inferior energy. The living beings in contact with the inferior energy is illusions, thinking he belongs to the inferior energy. Therefore, there is a sense of relativity in the material world. In the absolute, there is no such sense of difference between the knower and the known, and therefore everything there is absolute.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Swar Prabhu. So this is a very important shloka. ये हम सब लोगों को इसको मेमोराइज करना चाहिए श्लोक को. वदन्ति तत्तत्विदस् तत्त्वं यज्ञानम अद्वयम् प्रमेति परमात्मेति भगवान इति शब्दते. तो ये हम सबका एक्सपीरियंस है कि इस्कॉन में आने से पहले we had no clue. We understand there is something called Brahma Jyoti. We also understood there is something called Paramatma, and there is, Bhagavan also. But we had no clear idea. But we see how clearly Bhagavatam states the truth in the initial chapters only. So this is how Vedic knowledge works. It doesn't work by giving the whole thing in the end, but everything is given in the beginning, then explained in more and more and more detail. So now we see that devotees within ISKCON, they understand this concept of Brahma Jyoti and Paramatma and Bhagavan so very well. And also the last part, that the more a jiva is entangled with the material energy, the more we will identify. And of course, in the spiritual world, there is only spirit, which means the spirit soul or the Bhagavan or associates or the expansions, they are all spirit souls. So spirit is interacting with the spirit in that matter. But here, spirit is interacting with the spirit is interacting with the spirit, and in the material world, spirit is interacting with matter. And then it identifies him, himself also as matter. And that is where the problem lies. So these are very important words. And so these all 3-4 verses. So we should try to memorize and understand the purport also attentively. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare
This
Krishna,
one.
Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I have one question.
Last minute, Prabhuji, question will take in the end.
Okay.
Okay, Prabhuji.
तच्छ्रद्धधाना मुनयो ज्ञानवैराग्ययुक्तया पश्यन्ति आत्मनि चात्मानं भक्त्या श्रुता गृहीतया. Next one is Shivani.
That Shraddha Dhana, seriously inquisitive, Munaya, sages, Gyan, knowledge, Vairagya, detachment, Yukta, well equipped with Pashyanti, see, Atmani within himself, Cha, and Atmanam, Paramatma, the Paramatma, Bhaktaya, in devotional service, Shruta, the Vedas, Grahitaya, well received. Translation: the seriously inquisitive student or sages, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realize that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from Vedanta Shruti. Purport: the absolute truth is realized in full by the process of devotional service to the Lord, Vasudev, or the personality of Godhead, who is full-fledged absolute truth. Brahman is his transcendental bodily effulgence, and Paramatma is his partial representation. As such, Brahman and Paramatma realization of the absolute truth is but a partial realization. There are 4 different types of human beings: the karmis, jnanis, the yogis, and the devotees. The karmis are the materialistic, whereas the other 3 are transcendental. The first class transcendentalists are the devotees who have realized the absolute truth, absolute person. The second class transcendentalists are those who have partially realized the plenary portion of the absolute truth. And the third class transcendentalists are those who have barely realized the absolute focus of the absolute person. As stated in Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literature, the Supreme Person is realized by devotional service, which is backed by full knowledge and detachment from material association. We have already discussed the point that devotional service is followed by knowledge and detachment from material association. As Brahman and Paramatma realization are imperfect realization of the absolute truth, so the means of realizing Paramatma and Brahman, that is the path of Gyan and Yoga, are also imperfect means of realizing the absolute truth. Devotional service, which is based on the foreground of full knowledge, combined with detachment from the material association, and which is fixed by oral reception of Vedanta Shruti, is the only perfect method by which the seriously inquisitive students can realize the absolute truth. Devotional service is not therefore meant for less intelligent class of transcendentalists. There are three classes of devotees, namely first, second, and third class. The third class devotees or the neophytes who have no knowledge and are not detached from material association, but who are simply attracted by the preliminary process of worshipping the deities in the temple, are called material devotees. The material devotees are more attached to material benefits than the transcendental benefits. Therefore, one has to make definite progress from the position of material devotional service to the second class devotional position. In the second class position, the devotee can see four principles in devotional line, namely the personality of Godhead, his devotees, the ignorant, and the envious. One has to raise himself at least to the stage of second class devotee and thus become eligible to know the absolute truth. The third class devotee, therefore, has to receive the instruction of devotional service from the authoritative sources of Bhagavat. The number one Bhagavat is the established personality of devotee, and the other Bhagavatam is the message of Godhead. The third class devotee, therefore, has to go to the personality of devotee in order to learn the instruction of devotional service. Such a personality.
थैंक यू माता जी. सो ये लंबा परपट है और जैसे हमने इसके अंदर पढ़ रहे हैं कि ये जो एब्सोल्यूट ट्रूथ है, जो परम सत्य है, इसका एग्जाम्पल आता है कैसे सूर्य की किरणें, सूर्य और सूर्य देव. तो इस तरह से we get the proper understanding of Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagwan realization. और इसमें देखिए ऊपर प्रभुपाद ने लिखा था कि there are four kind of human beings, karmi, jnani, yogi and devotees. So which means those who are not karmis, who don't follow the Vedas, they don't even come in the category of humans, they come in the category of animals. और आप देखिए कि कितनी कृपा है चैतन्य महाप्रभु की और उनके भक्तों की कि कैसे हम लोग भी we were not leading, at least I can speak for myself, that we were not leading even a karmi life properly. It was mostly a vikarmi life. So by the mercy and potency of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers, that all these things is revealed in such a nice manner to us. And also how these three things we must understand are not different, but it is just the partial realization of the absolute truth. This is the difference. This is a partial realization. कि अगर हम सूर्य की किरणों को जान गए तो सूर्य को जान गए, हाँ जान गए पर पूरी तरह से नहीं जाने. और सूर्य के ग्रह में चले गए तो सूर्य को जान गए, हाँ जान गए, ज्यादा जान गए. पर अगर हम सूर्य देव को जान गए, the personality of deity of the sun planet, then we know everything. So they are all part of the absolute truth, but just the realization is a partial realization. So this is the thing to understand. Okay, next. Anand Vilasni Mataji. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
A third-class devotee therefore has to receive the instructions of devotional service from the authoritative source of Bhagavad. The number of Bhagavad is the established personality of devotee, and the other Bhagavatam is the message of Godhead. The third-class devotee therefore has to go to the personality of devotee in order to learn the instructions of devotional service. Such a personality of devotee is not a professional man who earns his livelihood by the business of Bhagavatam. Such a devotee must be a representative of Shukadev Goswami, like Sud Goswami, and must preach the cult of devotional service for the all-around benefit of all people. A neophyte devotee has very little taste for hearing from the authorities. Such a neophyte devotee makes a show of hearing from the professional men to satisfy his senses. This sort of hearing and chanting has spoiled the whole thing. So one should be very careful about the faulty process. The holy passage of Godhead, as inculcated in the Bhagavad Gita or in the Srimad Bhagavatam, are undoubtedly transcendental subjects. But even though they are so, such transcendental matters are not to be received from the professional man, who spoils them as the serpent spoils milk simply by the touch of his tongue. A sincere devotee must therefore be prepared to hear the Vedic literature like the Upanishads, Vedanta, and other literatures left by the previous authorities or Goswamis for the benefit of his progress. Without hearing such literatures, one cannot make actual progress. And without hearing and following the instructions, the show of devotional service becomes worthless and therefore a sort of disturbance in the path of devotional service. Unless, therefore, devotional service is established on the principle of Shruti, Smriti, Puran, or Panchratra authorities, the make show of devotional service should at once be rejected. An unauthorized devotee should never be recognized as a pure devotee. By assimilation of such messages from the Vedic literatures, one can see the all-pervading, localized aspect of the personality of Godhead within his own self constantly. This is called samadhi.
Thank you, Mataji. So, ये देख सकते हैं कि जो जितने भी ये श्लोक हैं सारे के सारे how strong they are, और जितने ही strong श्लोक हैं उतना ही strong जो है वो उसका purport है. So to understand, and we again and again we hear the caution to hear from the right sources. So we should be very careful that we don't hear Hare Krishna Mahamantra Kirtan from non-devotees. And we can also understand the potency of hearing from our Gurudev and especially from Srila Prabhupada, that how much potency it will carry, because the whole process is based upon hearing. So इसीलिए प्रभुपाद बार-बार पूरे भागवतम में लिखते हैं कि hearing from the right source is very important. So we should be very careful from whom we hear. And similarly, he's saying to hear Bhagavad Katha by professional writers, thinking it is all Bhagavad only. It is like a snake's poison touching the milk. It is so dangerous like this. So we should be very careful that don't hear professional singers singing Hare Krishna Mahamantra or Bhagavad Katha like this, so like this. And also understand that devotees never take, any for Vidya, for Bhagavad, we never take any Lakshmi like this. It should never be done. Brahman, this is the duty of a Brahman to give Vidya to everybody without any monetary, whatever somebody gives from donation, that is okay, like this. So thank you so much. So if anybody has a question, we can take. Otherwise, we'll end the session.
Prabhu, in the previous shloka, there was one word in the translation, Vedanta Shruti. So it is same as the Vedas?
Vedanta Shruti? कौन से श्लोक कहाँ पर आया वेदांत श्रुति which श्लोका में?
I think it must be in
वो था ना वदंती तत्त्वदस.
नहीं 1 to 10 I will actually say. नहीं 1 to 9.
1 to 9.
Text 12, a translation, last word.
Text 12.
Only.
Translation last word.
One second, Mataji.
यही वाला जो अभी हमने पढ़ा है ना, उसी में ही आ रहा था.
Simia.
Okay. कहाँ पर है? Which from the Veda?
Yeah.
So okay. So okay, the seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with the knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from Vedanta Shruti. Yes. So यहाँ पर लिखा गया है ऊपर श्रुता जो वर्ड आया भक्त्या श्रुता गृहताया, तो उसको प्रभुपाद लिख रहे हैं कि one should understand the Vedanta Shruti. Vedanta Shruti means scriptures only, you know, what we have heard, because whole Vedas are condensed in Vedanta Sutra, है ना. और जब हम भागवत पढ़ रहे हैं तो we are reading the natural commentary on. So the Shrutya Prabhupada is saying Vedanta Shruti like this, because it is the essence. The Vedanta Sutra is the essence of the whole Vedas. Whole Vedas we can't read, but reading Shruti means to understand Vedanta Sutra properly. Then we understand this Brahman, Paramatman, and Bhagavan like this. Okay. Anybody else has any question?
वो क्या है मुझे
ये योगी को भी बोलते हैं. It is a word you will find used in multiple manners. जैसे soul है ना, ये हिरण्यगर्भ मैं भी कई बार पढ़ता हूँ, मुझे भी ये योगी के लिए भी हिरण्यगर्भ होता है, भगवान विष्णु के लिए भी होता है, ब्रह्मा जी के लिए भी यूज होता है. It is a word used for different same word used for different personalities. I will check, Prabhuji. ये I also sometime scratch my head क्योंकि हिरण्यगर्भ is also name of Brahma ji, हिरण्यगर्भ is also yogi. So you know also Lord Vishnu के लिए भी गर्भदक्षाई विष्णु के लिए भी हिरण्यगर्भ यूज होता है, और ये पूरा जो ब्रह्मांड है उसको भी हिरण्यगर्भ बोलते हैं, you know, like this. So I will check, Prabhuji. For more details, I'll check. Okay. Saurabh Prabhu, is Saurabh Prabhu gone? He would have gone to the class. Okay.
Yeah.
So उनकी वो भक्ति शास्त्र शुरू हो गया. ठीक है. So thank you so very much for joining the classes and reading Bhagavatam. So we'll end the session now. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhaya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, ग्रंथ श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे. हरे कृष्ण.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण.
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी.